Power to all the people. We back with another video. Y'all see the title. The debate on free will. What do y'all think? Is everything already written? And since everything is already written, does that mean that you are subconsciously being controlled by forces that are out of your control? Or is everything written and you have the free will to make the choice to influence your decision, whether it be good or bad, forcing you to either learn, grow, be stagnant, complacent, etc. We gonna get into that. Let's see what these boys talking about. Shout out to Neil deGrasse Tyson and Star Talk, everything they got going on. Let's get into it.
Here's my take. It is true that at some level of resolution that we can observe, causality is absolutely true. Given these initial conditions, this is what will happen afterwards.
That's the physicist in
That's the
speaking.
physicist in you speaking.
Exactly.
So if you take it to its logical conclusion, then there is no free will because everything is predetermined by things that
Everything has an antecedent.
whether you know it or not, something is causing it to happen.
Something
Right.
precipitated the thing
That's
that
right.
caused the thing
That's
that
right.
made
It's
that
always
happen.
going to happen. But
Right.
there is also stochastic.
So just because something was made to happen, that doesn't mean that your action behind that is already predetermined. Example, okay, let's say I go to the grocery store and I buy a bag of bad apples. My reaction to them bad apples isn't already predetermined because I can be in a plethora of different states. You feel me? So I'm like,
Uncertainty in the universe. It's built in. There's randomness, there's unpredictability. Yeah. And so you have to ask, I think, if you're a physicist, what level of chaos actually affects you to the extent that you could actually make an instantaneous decision based on other stuff that's not necessarily in your past experiences or what you have just seen in your current environment. Right?
But wouldn't all those past experiences and your current environment, despite the fact that if you're introducing an element of chaos so that you've never experienced this ever before, your experiences that you have had would then inform your decision about the thing that you've never experienced.
Your inform is the word.
Oh.
Is it
Rather
inform
than
or dictate?
predicate. Right.
Right, or
Oh.
require.
Oh.
Right, that's the thing there. Yeah, let's say you're in a room with a whole bunch of audience members. You tell a joke.
Right.
It falls flat.
see, I feel like this is like bot mentality. How, if you don't think you got free will, you're a bot. That's how I feel.
In that moment, you have many things you could do.
Well, not a bot, but it's yes, we are being influenced by things. Yes, if I'm hungry, I'm going to, or if I think I am hungry, I am going to want to consume food or nutrition, right? So it's they're saying that's not free will. I'm choosing to eat. Like the same way a monk chooses to not eat, chooses to not speak. That's a natural thing to do, to speak, to talk, to have fun, you know what I mean? So when you're not doing what's natural, how is that not free will? But okay.
Do to turn it into a laugh
These just my thoughts.
point.
True.
Right? You hear silence and you'd be like, oh, that was good. And then everyone laughs. Or, so you make some
Or
sort
is this
of
mic
comment.
on?
Yeah,
That's
right.
the old one.
Right.
What do you do? Do you have the freedom to choose one of several choices that you had designed from your past, that you prepared to deal with that eventuality? Or is the choice made for you already?
But if he was less experienced, he might not dig out of that hole
Yes.
as effectively or efficiently.
Exactly.
But if you've been in 100 cases where you had a joke bomb,
Right.
you have data on how to pull out of it.
Exactly.
So statistically, you have a chance of getting people
And it
to
happens
smile.
instantaneously. You
Right.
don't even realize that it's happening.
It's in the
you know?
moment.
So it's
But
in the
yeah.
moment. Right.
Did you have free will to not?
See, that's right.
Right.
So now that would be interesting because here you are in a place where your instinct, your training, and
Your
your
10,000
desire,
10,000 hours,
right,
whatever it is.
will, as a reflex, cause you to say this, this, and this, and then people go, wow, that was great. Look how he turned it around.
So, Charles, can I say in that comment that he preloaded his neurosynapses so that in that moment, they all tripped.
Right.
They tripped, meaning triggered, to go to the solution to that problem.
Right.
Same is true.
But then I wouldn't have free will at that point.
That's
it
what
would
I'm
just
saying.
be a response. What I would have is a response to a situation, not necessarily. I wasn't really choosing that.
It chose it for you.
It chose it for me.
You have 5 choices, and then your system chooses one of the 5. Or
In that moment.
In that moment, right? And so in that moment, you are not exercising free will. Did you set it up, though, with free will in the past so that you could react this way deterministically, but you actually were in control of the circumstance? Right, here's another physical example of that. A football player is trying to sack a quarterback. The quarterback jukes left. The person trying to sack the QB doesn't have enough time to think about whether to move left or right or up or down. It has to react based on years of training and practice and experience. So in that moment, that action is not free. But in the...
See, this is what I'm talking about. It'd be like, when you try to sound so smart, you just don't sound smart to me. It's like, so you're telling me that these professional athletes, the most prestigious, highly trained individuals, yes, there is training, you still have to make a decision. You are the master of your own fucking shit. Like, what are we talking about?
Setting up of that moment, if it was free enough, does that constitute free will? From a physics perspective, it might not. Then again, from a psychological point of view or from a biological point of view, it might.
Wait, what good are you if you're not landing on one side or the other? I don't need you to. It could be this, it could be that, and I'm right both ways.
Yeah.
Whichever the actual answer is, I was right.
Yeah. Well, he's saying I don't really have the free will to make that determination. I'm going to be right or wrong.
Let's just ask an opinion. In my opinion, I would like to have free will exist in this universe, even though philosophically it can be argued that it does not exist.
Are you happy with a world where you perceive free will even if it isn't?
Maybe. This has to do with the movie Arrival, right, starring Amy Adams.
Yes.
Where if you know how your future is going to turn out, would you like to live your life anyway? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is yes, I would. But
Okay.
I still would like to think that the future is not yet predetermined.
No, but I know what? It's different. I'm not saying it's predetermined and you know it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, would you still be happy with life if some alien said, "Look, dude, your life is predetermined. There's nothing you can do about it. Keep on believing you have free will," and then they go back to their planet.
You're a puppet on a string.
Puppet on a.
I would be 100% happy if somebody came down here right now. Kenny, you don't got no free will. Everything you've been doing already is predetermined. Everything that happened to you was supposed to happen. I will still be perfectly fine because I'm going to still go on living like I got free will, like I'm that nigga, and I'm going to purposely try to break the motherfucking system like I'm Harry Truman.
A string
That's
from a free will
from
puppet.
you're a free will puppet on a string.
What I would say in that case is that I would hope that the knowledge that I have that puppet on the string circumstance allows me to circumvent it. I can find a way. If it's fate, right? You've seen so many Greek mythology stories where you try to avoid the fate of whatever the gods have
And the
destined
act
for
of
you.
avoiding it
The
makes
act
it
of
happen.
avoiding
Makes it happen.
Like Oedipus, for example.
Oedipus
Right.
would be the most
Famous of those.
egregious
Yeah.
example. Yes.
Sorry.
So the bottom line is, yes, I would still be satisfied with trying to do something different because even the illusion of trying to do something different is in itself a form of free will. Physics-wise, though,
It's not.
that's the challenge.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So Neil, if you had to right now decide that free will does exist or doesn't exist, what would you prefer?
My thinking over the recent years, because I didn't used to think about this at all, my thinking over recent years is leaning towards the absence of free will for practically everything we think and do in our lives. And I base that on the fact that over time, things that we have done as people,
I base that on things over time. So you're basing that off of not the present for one, and over time, This.
in our species at one time was you are totally to blame for that, or just something you did, or something you. We've learned, no, this person is more susceptible than you are to addiction.
Right.
There's a biochemistry there. This person cannot just be made the life of the party because they're on the autism spectrum. They don't control that in the way you might think they should, just because you're the life of the party. As you add up all of these things, let's go back to epilepsy, where before that was even a word, you were occupied by the devil. Did you do something bad? Or, well, you knew it was not everyone knew you were not in control of it. But today, no one is saying, did you have the free will to not have an epileptic seizure? Of course not. Do you have the free will to not be depressed? The person who's ready to jump off the bridge, in that instant, do they have the free will to not jump off the bridge? I don't think so. And the more I add up and explore the human condition, I'm forced to conclude that the direction we are headed is that we are all products
And these niggas listening like he's saying something profound.
of an absence of free will. And as a result, society needs more compassion for people who do not otherwise fit in.
See, I have the exact opposite position
Uh-oh.
in my own mind. I feel that it is because of
Come
the
on, Asian
absence of
man.
free will that you see in most behavior, that it is that 1% of free will activity that moves us in the right direction, bends us toward compassion, takes the arc of history toward justice.
But but going back to what Neil just said, there are people who actually suffer from personality disorders, that
Yeah.
suffer from brain disorders,
day-
where they can't do what you just said.
That's
they
right.
can't express compassion.
Just
They can't move
there was
towards
a
the
day when no one even thought to analyze it that way,
Right.
as a brain
Yeah,
disorder.
you were just an
Correct.
a-hole.
Yeah, exactly.
That was
Right.
it.
Now,
Like,
if they can't, you can. You can show that person compassion or understanding.
So if-
and therefore, free will as an entity exists.
Charles, you're drawing
Even
a
if-
line
even if
that
that-
I have seen
See,
be in constant motion over the decades and over the centuries. That
Interesting.
line that you're saying, they don't have free will, but I do.
Uh-huh.
I don't know that I can.
See, I have free will over some things and not over others. Someone can see me and say, that person needs help in this way and has the free will to help me. I see somebody else who needs this help and free will. Together, it is a network. It's not that any
So
individual
you have to
superior
draw the
other.
line for every individual and even perhaps for society.
Okay.
Does the criminal who's born in poverty have free will to not be a criminal?
yes.
If most of the people in prison came in below the poverty line.
Great
So there's some
question.
sociological force
Right.
operating there
Because for one, he wasn't born a fucking criminal.
So this is
that where we are less.
He was born a human being. He chose to go out and choose the easy route of stealing and robbing. That was a choice. He didn't have to do it.
Susceptible to that force.
I think that's a great question, analogy. Let's say this. Say those folks who have been branded criminals by our society are incarcerated.
Yes.
We can then, who we're fortunate enough not to face those same circumstances, who are not incarcerated, can look at these incarcerated people and instead of saying we must keep them away from society, welcome them back.
so that's called restorative justice.
Yeah,
that's
and
what you're
that's a
talking
free
about.
will example of the exercise of free will
Of society.
of society toward individuals who may not have had the options, had the life experience to recover from a bombed joke.
I saw an old movie
Yeah.
where there's a guy who was a junkie.
Yeah.
Right? And he needed help. But they said, no, the cops came and arrested him because he was a junkie.
Right.
Today, you wouldn't do that.
Right.
You would say the person needs help.
They need, right.
Right.
Therapy.
Even if that person
Treatment.
had robbed somebody, that person needs treatment. And the people who cannot shake whatever it is that afflicts them tells me that free will cannot be as free as we think it is. Do you remember the shooter in
Okay, when it comes to free will, shout out to my boy AJ. He made a great point. He was like, yeah, like the wheel, free will, like the wheel, like somebody's driving. the will ain't free. Somebody is controlling the will. You feel me? My whole thing is I am aware of, my cells and my different, auric fields and things of that nature, so that when it comes to the decisions I make, I have metacognition, the ability to think before I think, or think about what I think. You feel me? So it's like I'm conscientious of what I'm thinking about and what I'm doing at all times. And with that being said, my autonomous, nervous system, my subconscious, that shit is me, and that shit is predetermining my good actions for me. So my free will, my steering wheel is still being controlled by me subconsciously. So it's still me.
The University of Texas at Austin.
I remember that one.
Okay?
Yeah.
There's a movie they made out of it called The Tower.
Yeah.
Where he left a note saying, I just want to kill people. Something must be wrong with my brain. Please, when I die,
Look into this.
They looked, and there was a tumor putting pressure on a part of the. In fact, that's how we learn anything about how the brain works when
And
you have
this
situations like this.
Person had the free will
He
to
didn't
write
have the free
a
will.
note.
Thank you.
He had the free will to write the note.
But he-
So he did not have the will to resist shooting. But that's the line that you were talking about is a partial one.
Why isn't that line always in motion as we learn more and more about how the mind
It
works?
is. It is.
Okay, so then maybe it's a line of convenience today.
What about this? So maybe everybody just does what they want to do. Do what they want to do.
But tomorrow we're going to find out, oh my gosh, that person has no real free control over their behavior, over their personality, over their tendencies, over their treatment of others.
It's not a line of convenience. It is, in your words, a perimeter of ignorance. When Newton said we couldn't explain certain things,
Right.
God must have done it.
Of course.
That's a God of the gaps.
Of course.
That delineates what we don't know. The line you describe, I hope, is in fact that perimeter of ignorance which we slowly are moving toward and moving so that we do understand what the true nature of free will is.
So this is where people will push back. Most people are concerned not about the actions, but the consequences. So what they're thinking about is the punitive response to someone who does something wrong. And is a punitive response a deterrent for somebody doing something wrong or doing something wrong in the future?
Especially if they don't have the free will.
Right.
So there's the other side of this entire analysis is how does society interact with people who are being brought into the circle day by day. We're learning what we have control over and what we don't, biophysiologically, intellectually, emotionally.
Yes.
Why do people need anxiety meds? Or do they have the freedom to not
They have
be
children.
anxious?
That is why. That is why I'm
You want
telling
extra
you,
dose?
I'm taking them every day, and I got 3 reasons that I take them every day.
Some kids need them because they have parents. I'm just saying.
Very nice, very nice.
Okay, so Charles, if we're going to exit this conversation,
Yeah.
if we find a point of agreement, it's that this perimeter of ignorance, we recognize inside the perimeter there are forces operating against free will,
Yes.
our physiology, our neurochemistry,
Yes.
and physics,
Yes.
that surely that perimeter may grow,
Yes.
but it's possible that there's a limit to how far it will grow,
Yes.
beyond which we have to admit the existence of free will.
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you that.
There
Very nice.
we are.
That's a great
All
job.
It doesn't have to be absolute in one
So let's
direction
just-
or another.
So let's just run that back right quick. Let's just run that back.
It's
Which we have to possible at chemistry operating against free will,
Yes.
our physiology, our neurochemistry,
Yes.
and physics,
Yes.
that surely that perimeter may grow,
Yes.
but it's possible that there's a limit to how far it will grow,
Yes.
beyond which we have to admit the existence of free will.
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you that.
There
very nice.
we are.
That's a great joke.
It doesn't have to be absolute in one direction or another.
It's a bit more fluid. Okay.
And I'm okay
All
with
right.
that. There is uncertainty in the universe.
I'm
I
okay
embrace
with
it.
that.
I'll tell you this much. I've been married for 20 plus years. I do not have free will.
On that note,
On that
Chuck and Charles,
note,
thanks for helping us with this explainer.
Awesome.
On the perspectives, let's call it. But emergent perspectives.
So those were some perspectives, man. What y'all think about that, man? Do we got free will? Like, comment, subscribe. Make sure y'all show the boy some love. Drop in the comments what you think. Power to you.